What if I told you that your natural goodness is being used against you by people who understand the secret rules of power that nobody taught you? Every day, honest and well-intentioned people are manipulated, betrayed, and defeated by individuals who learn to exploit our natural tendency to trust and be fair. They lose promotions, relationships, and opportunities. And what's most terrifying? Machiavelli documented these strategies 500 years ago, creating a manual that psychopaths and narcissists use intuitively, while good people remain naively vulnerable. Machiavelli understood something most people refuse to admit. The world doesn't operate by moral principles, but by raw power dynamics, and ignoring this condemns you to perpetual defeat. Machiavelli, writing during the political chaos of Renaissance Italy, observed a disturbing truth. Leaders who followed Christian moral principles consistently lost power to those who were pragmatically cruel. He realized that politics and morality exist in completely different dimensions. What works in church or family can be disastrous when applied to real power competition. Machiavelli wasn't promoting immorality, but diagnosing reality. In competitive contexts, goodness without strategy is weakness that will be exploited by more cunning opponents. A 2021 University of Berkeley study revealed that individuals with psychopathic traits are 67% more likely to achieve corporate leadership positions than people with high empathy. Modern neuroscience confirms this with research showing highly empathetic people frequently make choices that benefit others at their own expense, while psychopaths consistently optimize for personal benefit. Observe how Adolf Hitler manipulated German people's goodness and hope, promising prosperity while planning destruction. Goodness without discernment becomes complicity with evil. Today we see this in politicians who speak of compassion, implementing cruel policies, in CEOs who preach family values while exploiting employees, in leaders who use moral language to mask power agendas. Have you noticed how genuinely good people are frequently passed over by more manipulative colleagues? When was the last time your honesty was used against you? This is happening to you right now if you believe the world automatically rewards goodness while observing less ethical people prosper around you. But here's what makes this truly disturbing. Machiavelli showed that it is better to be feared than loved because love can be withdrawn, but fear is consistent control. Machiavelli destroyed the consoling illusion that the world operates by natural justice or meritocracy, revealing that power usually goes to those who best understand and manipulate human dynamics. He observed that virtuous people frequently expect goodness to be automatically recognized and rewarded, while Machiavellians actively create conditions for their own success. The idea that good people always win in the end is consoling fantasy that keeps the virtuous passive, while manipulators take active control of situations. A 2020 Stanford University study found that 78% of corporate promotions go to people who demonstrate strategic behaviors instead of technical competence or moral character. Modern neuroscience confirms this with research showing manipulative social skills activate different brain circuits than real competence, and recruiters frequently confuse charisma with ability. Think of how Julius Caesar wasn't Rome's best general, but was best at forming alliances, manipulating public opinion, and eliminating rivals through politics instead of brute force. Currently, we observe this in talentless influencers who dominate platforms through algorithms and psychological manipulation, in mediocre entrepreneurs who prosper through Machiavellian networking. When was the last time you saw someone genuinely competent be ignored in favor of someone more politically astute? Do you believe hard work automatically leads to success? This is happening to you right now if you're working harder expecting recognition, while less competent but more strategic colleagues advance their careers. This leads to the most shocking aspect. Meritocracy is frequently an illusion created by the powerful to keep the naive focused on competence instead of political strategy. Machiavelli identified that real power comes from understanding and manipulating human emotions, not from brute force or rational arguments. People make decisions emotionally, then justify them rationally. He observed that effective leaders first control people's emotional state, then direct that state towards specific objectives, making victims feel they chose freely. The most sophisticated Machiavellian manipulation makes people feel special, understood, and important while being systematically exploited for the manipulator's benefit. A 2022 Harvard University study revealed that 89% of important decisions are made emotionally first, with posterior rationalization, making emotional control more powerful than logical arguments. Modern neuroscience confirms this with research showing emotions precede conscious thought by milliseconds, allowing skilled manipulators to plant emotional responses before rational analysis. Observe how charismatic leaders like Jim Jones and Charles Manson controlled followers through alternation between intense love and rejection, creating emotional dependency that nullified critical thinking. Today, we see this in abusive relationships that follow predictable patterns, in advertising that exploits insecurities, in politicians who alternate between fear and hope to control electoral behavior. Have you noticed how certain people make you feel incredible, then withdraw that validation to control your behavior? When has someone used your emotions against your own interests? This is happening to you right now if you make important decisions based on how you feel about people, instead of objectively analyzing their actions and motivations. But there's something even more sinister. Genuinely empathetic people are preferred targets of manipulators because their goodness can be turned into a weapon against themselves. Machiavelli understood that controlling how events are interpreted is more powerful than controlling the events themselves. Reality is less important than perception of reality. He observed that skilled leaders shape public narratives to make controversial actions appear necessary, noble, or inevitable, transforming opposition into apparent irrationality. The most sophisticated Machiavellian power convinces people that resistance is futile, that alternatives are impossible, that accepting exploitation is actually in their own interest. A 2021 Yale University study found that repetition of specific narratives can alter people's real memories, making them remember events consistently with the dominant narrative. Modern neuroscience confirms this with research showing repeated exposure to specific interpretations of events literally reconstructs neural connections, altering how past experiences are recalled. Think of how Stalin constantly rewrote Soviet history, making people who lived events remember them differently, or how he eliminated opponents from historical documentation itself. Currently, we observe this in how social media creates informational bubbles, in how corporations control narratives about their products, in how politicians reframe scandals as unjust attacks. Have you noticed how your memory of events can be influenced by how other people repeatedly describe them? Who controls the narratives you consume daily? This is happening to you right now if you accept dominant interpretations of events without questioning who benefits from those specific interpretations. This leads to the most shocking aspect. Narrative control allows manipulators to transform their victims into voluntary defenders of their own exploitation. Machiavelli introduced the concept of virtue, not moral goodness, but adaptive capacity to use any necessary means to achieve important objectives, including methods that seem morally questionable. Machiavellian virtue is practical intelligence that recognizes when traditional goodness is appropriate, and when cruel pragmatism is necessary to protect greater values or vulnerable people. It's the wisdom to understand that in a world where psychopaths operate without moral restrictions, good people need to develop strategic competence to avoid being destroyed by predators. A 2023 Princeton University study revealed that leaders who combine high empathy with high strategic competence are 234% more effective at protecting their groups from external threats. Modern neuroscience confirms this with research showing adaptive moral flexibility. Ability to adjust strategies based on context is associated with greater success in protecting fundamental values. Observe how Winston Churchill used questionable methods to defeat Nazism, or how civil rights leaders needed to be strategically astute to overcome systematic and violent opposition. Today, good people frequently refuse to develop strategic competence, allowing manipulators to dominate politics, business, and relationships through tactical superiority. Do you have the courage to learn strategies that manipulative people use, not to become like them, but to defend yourself effectively? When does goodness become complicity with injustice? This is happening to you right now if you avoid understanding power dynamics for fear of becoming corrupt, while allowing others to exploit your naivety. But there's something even more sinister. Refusing to develop strategic competence frequently condemns good people to irrelevance, leaving the world in the hands of the Machiavellian. Machiavelli wasn't promoting cruelty, but warning that good people need to understand the real rules of power to protect values they consider important. His message isn't be cruel, but be strategically competent, develop skills to navigate a world where not everyone operates by moral principles. Goodness without strategic competence frequently results in defeat and allows genuinely important values to be destroyed by those who have no scruples. Here's your challenge. Identify a situation where your goodness was exploited. Analyze what strategies you could have used to protect your interests without abandoning your values. Study how manipulative people operate, not to imitate them, but to recognize and neutralize their tactics when directed against you. Leave in the comments, do you believe good people can learn power strategies without becoming corrupt? Or do you think any strategic competence automatically compromises moral integrity? As Machiavelli observed, it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. The question is, will you develop competence to protect your values or allow naivety to destroy them?